really hard for me to deal with mistakes with a inner critic so strong as my own, was I would be like, okay, growing pain. This is a growing pain. This is a growing pain.
Oh my gosh, Audrey, we're starting a new series. This is so exciting. Basically, Audrey and I were having a conversation last week. Wait, also pause. National news. It's your birthday tomorrow.
My birthday today as we're posting this.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, we're recording a day in advance. We're so well, we came up with this idea last week and we're like, let's not delay. Let's just make this our series that we're posting now because we're so excited about it. So the whole premise is Audrey and I were talking last week about why don't we do a episode about if you have the fear of messing up and that's really like holding you back and getting you into like analysis paralysis or just fear of taking action, how do you move through that? But then we realized people have a lot of different fears for a lot of different reasons, and there's different methods to move through each of them. And as we quickly realized that would be, I hope, really helpful to do various episodes on, we decided to do it through a particular framework. So in this case, we're using the personality theory, the Enneagram, to describe the core fear of each type, especially related to how that applies to their career. So fears they have about their careers, and then how they have moved through that and become more integrated and less afraid. And for each of these episodes, we're going to have a guest that does resonate with each one of the 9 types. So we'll have 9 different guests. Our first one is Audrey because she isn't one.
Hello,
Her
I'm so
birthday
happy to be
is
here.
day of recording, also, or day of posting. So this is International Audrey Appreciation Day in my house, and I am also just so grateful it aligns to be able to feature your story about how, as a type 1, you have moved from feeling held up in a couple of areas and afraid to me being a very bold, audacious, bright, others-centered professional that is always like growing in your expert era, as I like to say.
Oh my gosh, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. And something that I want to say about personality tests in general before we hop in. I read this phrase once and it's always stuck with me that a personality test is not meant to put you in a box, but rather it reveals the box you put yourself in. And
So good.
isn't that so good? It's from my nifty little book that I have here.
Ooh, what's the book, since we'll be referring to that a lot?
Yes. So the book that we will be referring to is The Wisdom of the Enneagram, the complete guide to psychological and spiritual growth for the 9 personality types.
All
Again,
right.
a tool. Oh, and then also something that I've heard, I love catching on to these like little phrases and keeping them with me. So to share another one with you is that all of these things that we learn about any kind of system that helps us understand ourselves better, understands us, how we can relate to other people better. I like to see them as tools, not rules. So these aren't rules for how you have to live your life based on X, Y, and Z. Rather, it's a tool for you to understand, like, oh, this is something that comes up for me, and this is how I can handle it differently than maybe my friend or my partner or whatever it is. So tools, not rules, and revealing the box that we put ourselves in. 2 things
Ooh,
to keep in mind.
yes. I will share 2 more disclaimers, if I may. If I
Please.
may. The one is to agree and go further with what you're saying. I am reading this book right now called Personality Isn't Permanent by Dr. Ben Hardy. And I really am increasingly convinced that it's not actually helpful to see personality as permanent. And more so, not just the way you think about it, but actually, like, literally, I don't think it's permanent in many regards. So you may, by choice, through lack of evolution of self, like see many things as consistent. Um, I mean, I don't want to say that's like a fault, but I prefer to see personality as um, evolving and chosen, just to make sure that I am at cause in my life rather than at the effect, or like assigned something, or like certain
Mm.
behaviors that maybe I see as maladaptive. I'm always going to deal with those. I don't give that any time of day because I don't think it's very effective. So um, you could also say, like, some people would really, really disagree with me on that and say, like, the Enneagram is like 100% all accurate, and you're really just describing an evolution of like, and what it looks like to be an unhealthy, let's say, one, which is very different than what it looks like to be a healthy one. But you'll always be on that one scale. We could argue about that. I'm just going to go ahead and like shout out to anybody else who agrees with me. I'm with you that it's not necessarily permanent. The second disclaimer that I want to share is the Enneagram is hotly contested for like the history of it. It feels like in the last maybe 10 years or so, it became extremely popular and adopted by Christendom and Christian culture, and then it became very contested. It became, uh, some believe, and they might be right, which is a concern of mine, that the origins like may even be dark, or some would say like demonic in some sense. So I want to be very careful to not give this too much, this assessment or this personality theory too much weight. It's merely just a tool in such a complicated world of like, how do we describe each unique beautiful human. We can't really in one podcast series, so we're just going to choose archetypes, and this is one that I think a lot of people will be familiar with, so we chose it just to be helpful. But throw it in the trash if you think it's demonic. Follow your conscience.
Please, please, we welcome that. Like literally, just turn off the episode. You don't have to listen.
Yeah.
We want you to do what's best for you.
Yep. We do not idolize this or think
No.
that like this theory is what determines or like tells you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives you some language that you could ask yourself, do I resonate with this or not? Language
Yeah.
is helpful. All right, with that aside, do you
Very.
think we're ready to start?
I think so.
Okay,
Let's do it.
amazing. So, Audrey, I'm going to get to interview you about this. First,
Yay.
can you just share? We'll do each of these episodes in kind of three parts. The first part is, can you describe the type and then describe the core career fear? At least through your personal lens, it doesn't, finding a like a perfect textbook answer maybe isn't realistic, but what are some core
Mhm.
career fears of this type, and what is your personal story of having how you moved through it?
Mhm.
So, starting with
Yeah.
the definition, what is a type 1?
A type one, and I'm going to be reading out of my very large book. Um, and it's just a quick description here, but type one is labeled the reformer, and it's described as the principled, idealistic type. Ones are ethical and conscientious with a strong sense of right and wrong. They are teachers and crusaders, always striving to improve things but afraid of making a mistake. Well organized, orderly, and fastidious, they try to maintain high standards but can slip into being critical and perfectionistic. They typically have problems with repressed anger and impatience. At their best, healthy ones are wise, discerning, realistic, and noble, as well as morally heroic. All
Love.
right.
I'd agree.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I some other things that I've heard over the years for my friends that are ones, let me know if you agree, is like black and white thinking is a temptation, or like
Mhm.
more natural default, and a
Mhm.
focus on rules. I've also heard
Mhm.
this type called, instead of the reformer, I've heard it called the perfectionist.
Mhm.
What do you think about that? Is that kind of generally
Ding ding
true?
ding ding ding. All of
Ding,
those
ding, ding.
very much, very much on par with what I just read, what I've experienced in my own life, and the black and white thinking is so interesting because Well, actually, I'm going to take it back to a conversation I have with clients all the time, and I've mentioned it on this podcast as well. It's so funny when you're having a conversation with somebody and you can see it, or it's just interesting when you can see it register in their mind when they start to realize, oh, not everyone thinks like this. And
Yeah.
that's a big moment for me. And like, we'll get into my personal journey a little bit in a little bit, but the black and white thinking, especially us working together, you're more of a gray thinker, I'm more of a black and white thinker. That's why we make a great pair. Um,
Yes, I love.
and like, wait, not everyone thinks like this all the time. You're gonna hear me say that a lot on this in this conversation, actually.
That's literally any maturity journey. Like that's a chapter in it is like well
Mm-hmm.
a long ongoing one as you go into more maturity and more experience in life is I've resonated with this so much of um, just especially I feel like 10 years old to like 30 years old has
Mm-hmm.
been like continual just splitting my brain in half like in amazement like wow, my assumptions are not other people's assumptions, this is nuts, I'm
Yeah.
gonna just stop assuming things and start asking questions, this is great. So
Yeah.
that I actually when you mentioned clients, this kind of has made me remember that I think a lot of our clients tend to be ones, and certainly not a majority, but I feel that a good number of them, like it's certainly a material percentage, are I would say
Yeah.
ones because there's an appeal to find the right career path, the perfect job, and to
Mhm.
do things right, nobly, to make sure that you're discerning God's will, kind of thinking of His will as like one thing rather than like a general direction and a way of life. Um,
Mhm.
which actually, when you reframe for the one that it like God's will is more of a way of life than just like one specific thing for you most often. Um,
Mhm.
they're like, great, that's a new paradigm that I can focus on. I'm like, amazing, do it. Like you're
Yeah.
using your strength of being like systematic and locking in to an ideology.
Mhm.
Would you, did I describe that
Oh
okay?
my gosh. So described it so well. And also another thing that, because I've also noticed a lot of people tending to be more Enneagram 1 in our program. And I also feel a special connection with them, right? Because I'm like, oh,
Yes.
I feel
Yeah.
like I can speak to maybe a little bit more of what you're going through. And I also, this is a personal checkpoint too. I've done it a couple times when they're like, actually, no, that doesn't resonate at all. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry for overstepping.
Yes.
Let me take a step back. And that's a really good just check into it again of, oh, this isn't, these aren't rules, these aren't like
Mhm.
the end all be all, not everyone is a perfect representation of this quote one enneagram just because they tend to lean towards it. But to bring it back to what you were asking, I've also and saying, I also have very much noticed a lot of people who have a lot of one tendencies coming through. And another strong um, aspect of those people is the difficulty of being able to let in the messy thoughts. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to make a really intentional change in your life, a lot of times messy thoughts are really important. And what I mean by messy thoughts is I mean inviting in incomplete thoughts.
Oh,
And because that black and white thinking, you want to have like, okay, point A to point B and nothing in between. And in order to really piece through emotions and thoughts and ideas and different career paths, you need to invite in those incomplete thoughts. And I've seen
yeah.
myself struggle with that. I've seen clients struggle with that who tend to portray more of these one tendencies.
That's like classic waterfall thinking instead of agile thinking. Of waterfall being you like create the entire system until you could turn it on, and then all at once it's like it's done. There you go, perfect. I finished the whole thing before I showed anybody anything, and it takes forever, and then your result might be kind of off. Versus agile is it's iterative thinking of a lot of small tests. You start with the absolute minimum viable product, like absolute bare bones philosophy or theory, and then you test that, and then you'll add to it, and keep on iterating. And that goes for projects, thoughts, anything, goals. And it's like I always encourage clients that are struggling with that, like, just say exactly what you're thinking. I don't care if it like doesn't make sense at first. Let's just at least give it some air.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to hold you to it. We're like workshopping right now. Just throw some stuff out there. And it's like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know how to. It's like, listen, I'm the best audience. I'm like an Enneagram 4. I don't care. Like, let's play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really enjoy ones in that way. It's like my favorite to partner with them personally. I mean, some Enneagram micro experts would say, yeah, that's because fours like go to one in their strength or
Mhm.
growth direction.
Mhm.
Wait, what's the like, oh, their stress one is a two. But
For a 4.
yeah, for a four.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're
What's
throwing out some
yours?
numbers. My stress is a 4.
Yeah. So funny. It's like when I'm my best, I act like Audrey. When Audrey hers is her worst, she acts like Kelsey. I'm like,
That is so funny. What can I say?
what can I say? Okay, well, can you start talking? Here's what you can say. Can
Yeah.
you start talking about what are some of the career fears of a one? Speak from your
Yes.
personal experience and if you've noticed themes from others.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but to give the groundwork of the core fear of a 1 would be being seen as bad, evil, or corruptible, and what that actually means or what that kind of deteriorates into. Rather, take a step back. That's the core fear. And then what you want from that, what you're seeking from that fear is to have integrity. What that deteriorates into is critical perfectionism
Mhm.
and very harsh inner critic and um, the perfectionism is the word that's sticking with me. And in terms of your career, that can look in a lot of different ways, like you mentioned earlier, of people seeking out a coaching program like ours where they want to find the one job that is right for them and discerning God's will. And I mean, that's what drove me to the coaching program in the first place. And then so that was in my own experience, but then also in my experience, just in my everyday career, you see it from me all the time, is like not starting projects because I'm afraid of the mistakes I'll make along the way.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. And I'm just like, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the procrastination, that'd be the word.
yeah. That I am eager to get into how you've moved through that. And
Mhm.
not just like theoretically, though you're welcome to start sharing however you'd like, but
Mhm.
I've had the privilege of seeing you through a major career transition that I think took so much bravery and so much like being a beginner
Mhm.
so many different times as I gave you like new tasks that would be new to almost anybody because like we're
Mhm.
in a very niche profession. Um, and you handled it like, yes, with fear, but that's normal. But you actually like still did it. You didn't ever let it hold you back. And to me, that was
Mhm.
always like so noble. And I have
Mhm.
so much, like the world of respect for you for all of that, especially given that you did something new and unique. And also, you had to like explain to your parents, like, this is what I'm doing now, and a lot of friends. And they probably don't know a single other person that
Mhm.
is in the career that you're in. So they're not like, oh yeah, easy conversation. Like she's going into investment banking. Got it. Know what that means. Bye. Like
Mhm. Yeah.
I wonder how you moved through the social element of like wanting to be perceived as like right and whatever
Mhm.
else. Um
Yeah.
and also your own personal experience of doing a lot of tasks that were totally new and having to be a beginner in some ways.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. First of all, Love this question. Second, thank you for all the kind words.
You're
That's so
welcome. They're easy to say.
nice. It's been, oh my gosh, actually reflecting on it now, what a crazy journey it's been for someone with my personality type to jump into this
Yeah, sometimes
very
I don't think you realize like how impressed, and well, who cares, like not just about me, but like generically how I think anyone would be able to objectively see your journey
yeah.
as impressive. Like I don't think you always appreciate how most people wouldn't do this,
Oh,
like
it's
out of
kind of,
fear.
yeah. I mean, it is truly by the grace of God.
Yeah,
I, yeah, praise God because there really, and this is just the honest answer, there wasn't a lot of fear when I was making the actual transition, a lot of overarching fear. But I do have a reason for that because when I think about what I'm doing in my job now, it is so wonderfully, I want to say perfectly in alignment with who I am as a person that it was like, well, duh, of course I'm going to do this. And it was I was able to take away that social pressure pretty easily, again, by the grace of God, and understand what do I like to do and what do I naturally do. And what I naturally do is have deep conversations with my friends about who they are and who they want to be and what God is doing in their life, what they are doing, and how that all comes together and what that means, and how to take an intentional step forward. That's very much something I'd already identified in my life as a core value, or multiple core values kind of shoved into a big statement there. And so when this opportunity came out, I was like, oh, yeah, I already know that this is in alignment with my core values. So I actually I'm going to be operating in so much more integrity by stepping into this job than I was in my old job that was just not aligned with who I was. And then also, I wasn't being a good employee at my old job because of a lot of those things coming together. And I'm sure, some
yeah,
of you can relate to that. And that crushed me to the point of I need to make a change
yeah.
because I don't like who I've become. So that made the transition a lot easier. Being like, wait, I get to become someone who has that integrity, who is good and is working in alignment with who she is by transitioning into this job.
Oh, that's so sweet. See, that is a
Mhm.
reframe that people could take notes on.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
so cool. Like, it sounds like, to condense it, the anecdote to fear was realizing that you were growing in integrity by
Hmm.
choosing this new thing.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that, wow. And that you were going to be even better than before because it's who
Hmm.
you are and what you were made to do well.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So it's like, so for the hope and joy set before you of like, I know that this is going to be a much better career trajectory than my last. It's like I could handle startup costs. I could handle learning curve.
Hmm.
I could handle discomfort. Do
Hmm.
you resonate with that?
Yes. And then also, something that we talked a couple weeks ago about special graces and special graces
Mhm,
that God gives us,
mhm.
a term taken from the one and only Jordan Rayner, in terms of just a gift, right? And the special grace that I have from God in this scenario is that I really just never cared about the title of it all, the doing the really impressive corporate job. I mean, maybe I cared about it a little bit. I think I cared about it in my transition out of college to be like, look, I did it. I got the job after college. And then I got into the job. I was like, huh? This is it? This
Yeah,
is not, it feels worse to have a good title and be out of alignment of who I am, which the whole like alignment of who I am, that sounds kind of like wooey to me. But what I mean by that is to break it down even further, it's like, who has God created me to be and what am I able to step into that every day in a job that allows me to express that identity for
yeah,
his
in
glory and the
service
good
to
of
others.
others?
So,
Yeah. Yeah. We said the same thing.
yeah,
And that's what I mean, breaking down kind of that buzzword of alignment. And I wasn't doing that in my old job. So, yeah, to reiterate what you said, which was reiterating what I said,
yeah,
yes, I was absolutely growing in integrity by moving to this job, but which gave me the a lot of ability to work through the challenges, but I will say I want really the first 6 months, there were so many things that came up that never caused me to question, like, oh, did I make the right move? And I'm just like, oh, this is hard. And we even had a conversation about that once where I was like, Kelsey, this is harder than I thought it would be. And you were like, I knew it would be. Because I think I was coming in with rose colored glasses, like, this is great, which it was and it is. But I didn't anticipate the struggles along the way. But the way that I was able to work through those was seeing it truly as growing pains.
Mhm.
And that's the advice I like to pass on to clients as well, is there's a lot of growing pains in any transition. And because I made a lot of mistakes early on because I just had to figure it out with your help. And that came with mistakes. And I had to, the way that I dealt with those mistakes, because it's really hard for me to deal with mistakes with a inner critic so strong as my own, was I would be like, okay, growing pain. This is a growing pain. This is a growing pain. And it's not going to last forever because I will grow.
Mhm. Yeah. I hope it, um, one thing that I've really tried to do with being your teammate, and then I hope other ones get this in their teams, their bosses, their whatever, is just to help you realize, and I hope that ones listening to this can proactively realize that others see any mistakes or rough spots and realize that they've done that too. So
Mm.
I wasn't ever like appalled by like a little mishap. Truly, that happened. I was like, yeah, that's called doing it the first time. Like,
Yeah.
and so other people aren't like, oh, you idiot, and if they are,
Yeah.
like, I really think that's their problemo.
Yeah, that was something that I was reflecting on when thinking about this conversation too, was that I think me personally, I had such a hard time, and I still do, with making mistakes because my default setting is that I believe people are being as harsh on me in their minds as I'm being on me, when really that's not the case. And um, something I want to throw in a proactive tip. This is a very action step that you can take, you listener, anyone who's listening, um, where I was so afraid of making mistakes and I was feeling the weight of those mistakes so much because I know that with mistakes comes a conversation of, oh, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? What does that look like? And I feel like you and I had a couple conversations to navigate the best way for us to do that. And I've found that a more helpful, more um what's the word? It just a more helpful way of doing it is, if I make a mistake, it's like, oh, I've made the mistake. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. Because when I make a mistake, I've already beat myself up about it
Yeah.
for 12 times in my head before, if I was going to go to um, my boss who's on the
Oh my
call.
gosh, stop.
It's so funny to talk about our working relationship.
I know.
Um, but maybe just in a corporate environment, if you have a relationship with your manager and you can say, I know that I made this mistake. Here's what I'm doing to change it in the future. And that can help shield anything that you might get from them that's going to make you feel even worse.
Yeah, call it out instead of hide, would you
Hmm.
say?
Yeah, which just brings to my mind, like, just confess things. Don't keep
Confess, yeah.
them.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I had to do that this weekend. I was co-hosting a baby shower for one of my best friends, Ava. I feel like I talk about her all the time because she was on the podcast and she was a client before and whatever. We've had a multi-year
We love the client
relationship
to
since
best
then.
friend trope.
Yeah, it's an easy transition for me. But we were, my other best friends and I were hosting the baby shower for her, and everybody, I think, showed up like 2 hours to the house in advance to like set up the balloons or whatever. But I was bringing a bunch of the food and the flowers, and they didn't tell me exactly when to show up, and then like things took longer than I thought, blah 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 blah. And it ended up I got like a call and a text from different people like, you good? And it was like 20 more minutes before, and I was like, great, cool, just lost all my best friends. They think I'm a loser. They don't think I don't take my responsibility seriously. And it was really just that the cucumber sandwiches took way too long, and my like little bento boxes with succulent party favors also took forever, and the meatballs and like all things, and then the flowers, I couldn't get the right shade of pink, and I was just like, oh my gosh, they're gonna think I'm such a loser and I don't take this seriously. But and then I showed up and they were like, hey, oh my gosh, those flowers look so good. Like, oh, I just saw your text, no worries. And I was like, wow, I literally thought everyone was going to be like, crucify her. So, anyway,
The inner critic.
the inner critic. I will say that what you were mentioning about, oh, how do I phrase this? It's like, you're probably harder, people aren't thinking things as harshly about you as you think about yourself. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that's especially true of ones, not universally true of everyone. People try to make that advice or say that about anybody, and I really don't think that's true. I think we have all come across people of varying personality types that, or like stage of character development, that they think they're fine, and everybody's like, oh my lord, they need to apply some feedback. I just really haven't found that to be super true of my one friends. It can be of other people, but we really are specifically sharing this advice within this context.
Yeah.
Other people, I'm like, oh wow, self-awareness could go up, but
Yeah. And I would
not
say,
you. You're probably like, I always think like when I'm about to bring feedback to you, I'm coming in with the lens that you've probably already like internally slayed yourself a few times, and so
yeah,
don't harp on anything.
I appreciate that so much, really. And your awareness with that too, because um, it's true. I heard this phrase recently about a one and their inner critic, and that their inner critic is constantly assaulting them.
Mhm.
And wow, did I feel seen by that? It's like, oh, it is constantly assaulting me. And there's ways to work through that and to deal with it. But I mean, at the core, that's what it feels like a lot of times. So I imagine just in like navigate, I mean, I have experience navigating friendships like that, and then also with romantic relationships, just understanding that about yourself so you can translate that. I guess we're talking specifically about career.
No, let's talk about
Just
dating.
like, I know, I'm like, oh, in dating.
Highly
Um
different topic.
this is
I
very
think this
common
is
for
forever
us.
a fascination for me, even though I've exited that phase.
In marriage as well.
Yeah, yes.
Um but in like I'm thinking about if you're working on a team of people, and if maybe you someone on your team is a one, has one tendencies or whatever, really, whatever you do, don't point out their mistakes. They already know about them. I
Mhm.
promise you. And then if you're feeling like people are pointing out your mistakes, it's okay that you're a little bit more sensitive to that than maybe they understand. And that's a completely valid conversation to have of like, hey, I already know that I made this mistake. I've already assaulted myself 3 times about it.
Is it, I guess, how do you recommend we others go about that when interacting with ones? Like, I hear you say like, don't point out our mistakes, but in bringing up the conversation, what's a helpful way to do it?
Mhm.
My theory has been, you could correct this if there's a better way to do it. It's like, don't start by pointing out the mistake. Just be like, can I get an update on this? Or like, can you tell me more about this section over here? Or like that thing that you sent me? And then you'll probably say exactly what I'm thinking. So in that,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not,
funny.
I hope that abides by the rule of like not bringing up the mistake, but
Mhm.
opening the conversation.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I didn't realize how sneaky you were being.
Well,
No, no, it's good. Not sneaky, just intentional. And that's so true. And I do that in our conversations where I'm like, well, this is what this is, and then here are all the things that I did wrong and all the ways that I rectified it, and then I did it wrong again, and then I'm rectifying it this way now.
Yes,
And
exactly.
usually our conversations go, Kelsey asks me one question, and then I give her a 10-minute response, and then I say, anything else?
And I
Um,
say nope.
yeah. And it works.
Yeah, it does
Um,
work. It does work. You're a very
mhm,
effective professional. I want to ask you in closing, does it get
mhm,
better if somebody's like really, really feeling so bad about themselves right now
mhm,
and just think like the flaws of this personality type or like the worst way to be, because I think every personality
mhm,
type gets especially tender about whatever their own perceived flaw is. If somebody's just having such a hard time and is really insecure and thinks that there'll always be an overthinker, there'll always be a or like a thoughtful procrastinator because I want to do it perfect, or um,
mhm.
a perfectionist, all that stuff. Will they always be?
Mm, no, there is. I love my one nature. I love what it challenges me with it, what I have been gifted from it, some of the gifts that come from it. And I'm going to cringe as I'm talking about myself this way, but I think it's important to verbalize
Do
it, is the wisdom and thoughtfulness, intentionality, discipline, a really helpful self-critic or inner critic. That is a good thing to have. The self-awareness from that is so beautiful and can really just allow you to be such a force in your relationships, in your friendships, and a great leader in leading people in integrity when you are able to kind of reconcile this inner critic in your mind and using it, remembering too that the inner critic is it is serving a purpose. It's
you?
just directing what purpose it's serving. Is the purpose to um like point you down a good path, or is the purpose to assault you? No. The purpose is to inform you about your surroundings, or inform you about your feelings, or to inform you about the relationships that you're having with people. And it is such a helpful tool. And there is so much. I was listening to a podcast that I actually, it's a great resource that talks about the Enneagram in a Christian way. And she's talking about how, like, the inner critic and the Holy Spirit are like, replace your inner critic with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And, and to put it really simply, she has a much better description of it. But remembering Romans 8:1, that there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, and you
Yeah.
don't need to condemn yourself. You just need to accept the grace. And trust me, friends, I'm on this journey. But what an amazing opportunity to just accept the freedom and grace that we have in Jesus, and how that's going to hit for everybody, how it's supposed to hit. But as a one, it comes in such a special way that gives you freedom from your fears, freedom from your the harshness that we put on ourselves. And it's wonderful over here in little Wonderville.
Wonderful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah,
And
let's close with a pun. I love that. Actually, no, I generally hate puns, but I'll let it happen. I so appreciate you, Audrey, and I just think that I really want to commend you for so many things. I mean, I could just retell your whole life story through my eyes. Well, your professional story. I don't know if I can't really speak to your childhood, but it's just so amazing to me that though you, like many others, really struggle against perfectionism, you also embrace high standards for yourself.
Mm,
And you have embraced high standards for yourself while throwing yourself into interesting, unique, brave things like being an international studies major, right? I think.
mhm,
And
mhm,
then going into tech sales and describing really complex things that you might not have always known, like what's going on, and working with like governments is who you sold to,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Um, and can be just like so intimidating. And then you went in from tech sales to career coaching, and you handle both the extremely logical side of the job search strategy that we focus on with our clients with the emotional, spiritual side. And I just don't think there's any other Audrey out there. You were like the only one, but I do think that the themes you've shared, I hope are um, just aspirational to others that see a kindred spirit in you, and to know that they can make big leaps too, and they could do amazing things, even if currently they're struggling against a voice that says, you're not doing all that hot, or all these other people must be seeing blah 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 in you. No, I think that like you are so praiseworthy. So thank you for sharing your story on this podcast, and happy birthday.
Thank you. This is the best birthday gift. I love this.
Oh.
I was gonna say I love this conversation. Conversation is just me. I love talking about me. No, I love sharing through the lens of the Enneagram. I think it's so interesting, and I can't wait to talk about yours when we get around to week 4. But we have guests coming on the next couple of weeks, which will be really exciting, and we'll talk about their own career journeys, and hopefully you valued listener will resonate with one of the episodes coming up, and or resonate with multiple of the episodes coming up. Also invite you to send them to people because I always think that's a special gift when someone's like, this, like, I know maybe you resonate with Enneagram stuff, or maybe you just resonate with something that was said in this podcast. I thought you would enjoy hearing this, so send this to your one friends.
A podcast for friends. I love that. Okay, heck yes. Well, have a great birthday tomorrow.
Thank
And
you.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you, so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice, so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.